For 10 long years, Maria carried a secret she wished she could forget. At 72, she had lived through war, raised 3 children alone, and survived the loss of her husband, but nothing had unnerved her like the swelling on her left shoulder. It began as a harmless bump, barely the size of a grape, one she noticed while brushing her hair in the mirror. She thought it was nothing, maybe a muscle knot or an age spot, but over the months, it began to grow. At first, she wore cardigans even in summer, brushing off her daughter's questions with a smile. She told no one about the sharp ache that came at night, or the strange, warm throbbing that made it feel like there was something alive under her skin. Maria had always feared doctors. Her late husband had gone in for a simple checkup and never came home. That memory kept her away from clinics. She told herself she was too busy, too old, and that she could live with it. Year after year, the bump grew larger, rounder, until it formed a dome on her shoulder. The skin over it turned shiny and tight, so thin she could almost see the darkness inside. By the 10th year, it was heavy enough to pull her posture forward, the constant pressure stealing her sleep. Her granddaughter once rested her head against Maria's shoulder and asked, "Grandma, why is it so hard?" Maria only kissed her forehead and changed the subject. Then one cold evening, while making tea, Maria reached for a jar on the top shelf. She felt a sudden, deep burn inside the lump, a sharp pressure, then a small pop. Warmth trickled down her back, slow at first, then faster, soaking into her blouse. She froze. The smell hit her next, thick, sour, almost metallic. She set the jar down with shaking hands, her breath shallow, heart pounding as she touched the wet fabric. When she pulled her hand away, her fingers were coated in a dark yellow paste, streaked with red. Her daughter, alarmed by the noise, rushed in and gasped. Without thinking, she guided Maria to a chair, her voice trembling as she called an ambulance. 10 years of fear and silence were pouring out, and Maria could feel her strength slipping with every second. At the clinic, the nurses exchanged glances as they peeled away Maria's soaked blouse. What lay beneath made even the senior doctor pause. A ruptured abscess the size of a fist, its cavity deep and inflamed, edges raw and red. The smell clung to the air, impossible to ignore. The doctor explained gently that it had been building for years. Layers of pus, dead skin, and hardened oil trapped beneath the skin, and if it had burst inward, the infection could have entered her bloodstream and killed her within hours. Maria lay still as they began the procedure, her daughter holding her hand tightly. Warm saline flushed into the wound, carrying out clots of yellow-white sludge, followed by a careful scraping of the thickened inner walls. Maria clenched her teeth at every sting, but also felt an odd lightness, as if decades of burden were being lifted. Hours later, the wound was packed with fresh gauze, clean and pale against her skin. The doctor warned her about follow-ups, antibiotics, and care, but Maria was barely listening. She was thinking about the tea she had left unfinished, the jar still sitting on the counter, the cardigan she no longer needed to hide behind. On the way home, her daughter drove slowly, one hand on the wheel, the other resting over Maria's. Outside, the streetlights blurred into gold, and for the first time in 10 years, Maria sat upright without pain. That night, she slept without the heavy, pulsing shadow on her shoulder, and when the morning light came through her window, she let it touch her skin without fear.